So Amber, I think you can see my screen, and we can continue, please? So what do you still remember about collections? And of course, this is not a test to you. This is just to refresh your memory as much as we can to build on top of that. So don't be scared. You can just say anything that comes out in your mind.
Okay, so collections, is it the same thing as arrays?
Okay. Yeah, it's true. That is partially true, but yeah, that's correct. And is it different? There is a difference between collections and arrays?
Mm. I'm not sure if there is a difference.
Okay. So something that we can recognize array with, that we are not able to mix strings with integers or booleans. So with arrays, you can have arrays that is like that. You can say string a, b, or even pc, like that. This is a possible array, but we are not able to do a and then 2. We are not able to mix different types. Okay. And we also, it is possible that you can find an array like that. So you can have array of booleans. This is array of booleans, an array of strings, array of integers. Clear so far?
Okay. Yes.
Okay. Collections is something that is more advanced in a way that when we create an array, we have to give it a size. So when we create an array, not that we have to give it a size, but when we create an array, we build it with a fixed size. It means that when you first define an array, for example, in this way, okay, it is actually, I mean, forget about this because this is wrong. Let's talk about this string. So the size here is actually 2. So if you want to increase the size, actually that's not possible. The size does not grow dynamically in this specific case of the pseudocode. But if we want something that can grow, it means that I can keep adding elements to the array during the program, then array maybe is not suitable. We have to use collections. Collections is dynamic and it grows. Dynamic means that it doesn't have a fixed size like the arrays. So I can keep adding elements to it. Okay. And also the collection have methods that can be used with it. It can tell me, so in the case here, when we are looping through the array, we have to really be very careful not to exceed the index. So if we know that we have here 2 elements, so we know that our index here is 0 and 1. We don't have an index 2. So our index always need to be not bigger than n minus 1. The last element is n minus 1 here. And we have to be really very careful about it. In arrays, in collection, we don't have to worry about that. Why? Because they supply us with a method that is called hasNext, like that. So again, collection is quite similar to arrays, but it have certain methods that help us in the loop, in the way that we go through the elements of the collection. So we don't need to really worry, oh, we need to loop in the arrays, we need to say, oh, counter or even index here, index from 0 to, we say here from 0 to 5, or even in this case, from 0 to 1, in this specific case here. So remove that. So here in this specific case, loop index 0 to 1, and then we put A and we put index here. So this is how we're going to handle. If we make a mistake here, that is very critical. Things will not run as it should. But in the collection, we don't need to worry too much about that. So here we have something called stuff. And stuff is a collection that have elements inside. And if we want to start to loop through the collection, whatever is stored inside the stuff collection, we will just use loop while stuff hasNext, while always run with the condition. So if the method hasNext return true, we will execute that line. If it doesn't, we will not come here. So we don't need to put numbers at all like the array. We just need to depend on hasNext. If it hasNext, it means that so if we didn't reach the end of the array, hasNext is telling like that. If we didn't reach the end of the array, we can still run and get something out of the array or out of the collection in this case. So how we get something out of the collection? We don't use the square brackets like the array. We use a method called getNext. So if you have next, you can get next. So if you are here and you test if you have next, so definitely you have next. You have something. So it means that you can go and get the next. You can get this one, which is your next here. So if you come again and if you are here and you want to check you got next, definitely this will result into false because you already reached the last element in your array and you don't have anything next. So did you understand what I'm trying to convey to you? Is it clear or difficult a bit?
No, it's sort of clear.
Okay, what is the portion that is not very clear to you?
So for collection, you don't need to like mention any numbers or anything. It'll check it
No,
itself.
it check
There.
it itself, yes. Using
Okay.
the provided method hasNext, yes.
Okay, so hasNext and getNext is what is used with collections.
Yes, and this is only two methods I mentioned only now, but there is another three methods that we will mention later. I mean, on the next slides, coming slides. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
So there is, yeah. Let me focus on that two methods first. So again, it's more easier for us. And you see here hasNext and stuffNext. This is clear. This is clear that we get the item and we assign it to a variable. Is that clear so far?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. We move to the next. So this is explain actually the difference between the array and the collections. Can you please read that here? This read them loud, please.
Okay, so an array is ideal for storing a single type of information. For example, integers, strings, and when the number of items is known, but when we need to store different data types together, collections are used. Different data
Integer,
types,
objects,
integer objects, booleans, and etc. And collections allow custom specification of the type of elements and can be resizable.
does this make sense to you compared to what I said?
Yes.
Okay, can you read this part before we move on?
Okay. So an advantage of collections is they behave like a resizable array, allowing for dynamic storage without prior knowledge of the number of items.
Clear, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's good. So the methods that we have for collections, previously, if you have a, n, you are able to put n plus 1, right? This is how you assign something inside your array, right? But in your um, collection, you cannot use that method. So you have to use um, did you study methods before? Do you know what the mean method means?
No.
Okay. So did you see this absolute before?
No.
Okay, okay, okay. So uh, this is clearer outside pseudocode, but it is still popular topic even in certain syllabuses of pseudocode, especially if we are talking about the British syllabus. But here it is maybe not so stressed out. I see sometimes it is used, but again, because pseudocode in IB syllabus is not. I mean, if you look at the notations that is given by the IP, they only have 3 or 4 or 5 papers that they say this is the official syllabus of the IP. The IP books have different, have more information than the one official syllabus that they give. So what I want to say that methods is used to group pieces of code. So if I have a big program like let me just go to something that we already used here. Let me see. Ah, what did we that what did we talk about here? So so you see here, you see this. We already explained it in the first thing in our class, right? So this part, I can group this 3 lines of code, and I can give it a name. I can say init array like that. So I can call these 3 pieces these 3 pieces of code anytime, but by their name. I just say, oh, instead of writing that, if I want to initialize the array 3 times in my code, for example, for any specific reason. So instead of keep writing these 3 lines again and again, I just say, I just give them a name. I call them init array, and then I can call them any number of times. And the same here. Um, so this, I can call them print array. And that, when I call them like that, this will be a method that is being called to print the content of the array. So anytime I call print array, it go execute that 3 lines of code and will print out all the content of the array. So maybe I initialize the array like that, and then after I initialize it, I put something different in the array. I put different values, and then I would like to print it again. So I can call print many times as I want, and we call that um, methods. So when I call certain pieces of code, I give it a name. We call that a method, and I decide to name that pieces of code, and I give it a name. So I call that method. That is not um, clearly part of your syllabus, okay, or of your exam. In your exam, you just need to write lines like that. How big it is, they don't care. You just need to write in lines. But in other languages and even other versions of pseudocode, they have it clear. You need to really understand a different type of methods even, and how you can pass something to the method as an input, and then you take something out of a method. But did I confuse you by the methods? How I define the method?
No.
Okay. I don't want to give you more details because again, that will not be part of your exam. So we need to focus only what you're going to be examined with, so that you don't write it there. Because if you write it there, maybe they will tell you this is not part of the IP. Okay?
Yes.
Okay. But in short, also you have to understand sometimes inside the exam. So can you remember when I give you the exercise? That was the first time that you dealt with array.length. Am I right? You
Yes.
use this array.length, right?
Yes.
So sometimes in the exams they also tell you, give you methods. So array.length is actually, this length is a method. So it is something that so you don't know how they get the length. You only need to know that this method, if you use it, it will get you the length. It will count how many elements in the array and will get it to you. You don't know how it works. How it works, this is a secret. This is some code that we need to get executed. But you only know that if you use that method, if you call it, it will get you out something in return, and you can store that in any number or any variable. Clear to you, right?
Yes.
Okay. So is that array length is the only thing? No. They can introduce you in the questions something else. Like, for example, if you are dealing with strings like that, A, B, C, D, sometimes they can introduce something called sub sublengths. And there is, or not sublengths, but actually it is substring. Okay, so this substring, and sometimes they refer to it sub str, it depends. Okay, so if you introduce it to you, they would like you pass here two parameters. Okay, so if you want to cut and slice this string and get something out of it, so here we have how many characters? We have 4 characters. Am I right? So what if I want to start at position 0 and get 1 character out? So I will get the A. So I will be able to slice the A. But again, that is not part of your syllabus, but sometimes they introduce that in questions. So I will give you an example of how that works, how they introduce it to you in the question. If they introduce it to you, then you have to use it as they explain to you in the example. Okay, and then so maybe this is again even in strings. A is at the index 0. B is at index 1, 2, and 3. So this is exactly similar to the concept of what? Of arrays, right?
Yes.
But I feel that you're getting confused.
Mm, yeah, a little. I'm getting confused because so collections don't have indexes,
No,
or
it
they do.
doesn't. It doesn't have indexes. It doesn't have. I
Um,
Okay. I think forget about what we are discussing at the moment. I just try to explain to you what methods, but that take me to totally different area, and that will confuse you. So don't forget about what we explained just now if it's confusing to you. Let us go back, focus on the collection to be able to finish it. And then when I have a chance later to explain to you methods, I will just go and explain it. I just want to tell you here that collections have this set of methods that we are able to use. Okay, so we have add item, and then we use that add item in this way. Can you see here? Hot is a collection that got items inside, and we are able to add a new item by calling that method. So I use add item, I pass inside it here. You see 42 inside, right? Or you see here a string chili.
yes.
So when you add a parameter inside the method like that, in between the square, no, not the square, in the round brackets here, when you add something inside, so that will be added to the collection. 42 will be added to collection. Chili will be added to the collection.
Okay.
Clear?
Yes, and I can only do this with collections.
Yes, perfect. Yes, true.
Uh,
Okay, I'm listening to your question, please.
no, I was just saying okay.
Okay, so do you see here, get next?
Yes.
So get next will get the first element and will store it in a variable called temp. Okay, and what about reset index? Can you please here read this?
Restarts the iteration to the collection. The two lines shown will retrieve the first item in the collection. Okay, so this goes to the beginning of the collection then.
So, okay, what I want to tell you, the reset index is, you remember in the array, we have a loop in the normal
Yes.
array, and we have sometimes something called n, sometimes, and we say from 0 to 3. We assume our a equal 0, 5, 9. This is 0 index, this is 1, and this is 2. And then I can say a n, right? So how I move from one element to another? By incrementing that index, right? But
Yeah.
in the collection, you do not deal with index at all. It is done automatically for you. But the problem is, if you already call getNext, if you already call it one time, it is equivalent to incrementing the n to 1. So we said every time we run the loop, we start with n equals 0. And then second time we run, n equal 1. So, but this is done automatically for us inside the code. We don't need to care about it. We just need to keep calling getNext. When you call getNext, he increments internally kind of loop that he handle his own way, but we don't care about it. So it means that n now, so for example, once you call getNext, it move from so it will first, when you are in this position, the first time you call this getNext, it will actually get you whatever at position 0. Okay, you call it again, it will actually get you the element at position 1. Okay, so if you want to return back, now there is no way to go back. You want to get this item again, the element at 0 again, which is here, you are not able to go back. So what you can use is you go use reset next. Reset next take you as if you starting the loop again from position 0 here. So you are able to address the first element in the collection. Confusing. I see that you're not talking at all.
I'm just trying to understand. So this takes me back to the start of the collection, but then why would I need to do that?
You always need, before you start to make any loop, you want to make sure that you never called getNext even a single time. If you ever called getNext, it means that you already got the item here and you already moved to the next. So the internal counter in the collection have been incremented. Okay, if it is incremented, then let me see. If it is incremented internally, you never know what position it is now. So it is safe to always, it is just safe and a good practice to always, before you run any loop, like that, and
Yes.
before you run it, you need to call reset next. So you need to start your loop. You need to make sure you start your loop with a reset internal index inside the collection. So you make sure your n go back to 0 first. So it means that every time you run this loop, you are running when you are starting from n equals 0. But if you didn't do that, there is a chance that you are starting from n equal something in the middle. Maybe it's equal to. So you run only one time and then you already reached the end of the array. So maybe you only print the end of the collection, the last element in the collection. You don't want that. So as a safe practice, you always call resizing before you run the loop to print everything in the collection. If you don't call it, you cannot guarantee that you print everything inside the collection. You can print all. I'm so sorry.
Yes.
You can print all, or maybe you print only one or two elements in the collection. Maybe you cannot guarantee that you print all. So to guarantee that you print everything in the collection, always call resizing before you call that loop, because here this looping thing or your index is hidden from you. You don't see it with your own eyes. Here we are able to see the n. Where is it now? The n is equal 0, n is equal 1 in the array. But in the collection, we don't see that. It is handled automatically for us. Okay? So, okay, now I can tell you one thing. Let me just tell you. Give me a second. I will try to simulate this somehow to wait. Yep. We come here. This why is not showing to me. Okay. Try again to share. Yeah, it's here. I think you can see my screen. So assume hot is a collection. Okay. And then I say hot. I say v1 equal or not v1 item 0 equal hot dot get next. Okay. And then so I take from the collection the first item, I store it in a variable called item 0. Okay. And then I call again, I repeat the same thing again here. I repeat it again, but I store it in item 1. So I have two variables. I already got two items from the collection and I store them in two different variables. And then suddenly I say loop while hot get next, like that. And then end loop, like that. And then I would say output hot dot get next. If my collection have 42 and 50 and then 100. Okay, I would like you to tell me this loop will actually print how many elements inside this collection.
I'll print 2, right?
We have 3 elements. The size equals 3. And here 0, 1, 2. Although index is not clear is not used clearly in collections. We have 3 elements, right? Okay. Yes. The first element will be stored in item 0. Yes. So item 0 equal 42. And then
yes.
So sorry again, can you please close and open again, please?
Yes.